The conference room was buzzing with polished shoes and sharp suits, the kind of place where power was worn as casually as cufflinks. At the center of the room sat a gleaming car engine, its tangled wires and cold steel a symbol of prestige and innovation. The executives circled it like predators circling prey, debating specifications and calculations. Then, suddenly, the silence was broken by laughter. At the head of the table stood a woman, Isabella Harrington, the youngest female CEO in the city's history. Confident, striking, and unapologetically sharp, she carried herself with the weight of empires. But her laughter wasn't warm. It was sharp, mocking, and aimed at a man who didn't belong in that world of glass towers and skyscrapers. His name was Marcus Reed. He wasn't wearing a tailored suit or polished watch. Instead, his janitor's uniform carried stains of hard work, his hands marked with the calluses of survival. A single father to a little girl, Marcus had taken the janitorial job to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. On that day, he had simply come to clean the floor, pushing his cart past the executives when the engine on the table caught his attention. He paused, his eyes studying it with quiet intensity. It was a machine, but to Marcus, it wasn't just metal. It was a puzzle, a heartbeat of steel and motion, something he had learned to love when life had once been different. Before tragedy had stripped him of his dreams, Marcus had studied engineering at a community college. But when his wife passed away during childbirth, he had given up everything, school, career, ambitions, to raise his daughter alone. Now, Isabella's mocking voice filled the room, daring him, taunting him. She had caught the way his eyes lingered on the engine. "You think you can fix this?" she smirked, her tone dripping with arrogance as the executives chuckled. And then, in a move that stunned the room, she added, "If you can fix this engine right here, right now, I'll marry you." The laughter erupted louder. To everyone, it was a joke, a cruel spectacle. But to Marcus, it was something else, a chance. Not at marriage, not at pride, but at dignity, at proving that he was more than the uniform he wore. Before I go further, if you believe in kindness, dignity, and second chances, make sure you like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with others, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Together, we can spread stories that remind the world of compassion and humanity. Marcus stepped forward, his heart pounding. His palms were sweaty, and his shirt was stained from hours of scrubbing floors, but his gaze was steady. He asked for a few tools, his deep voice cutting through the laughter. Some of the executives snickered, while others whispered, "This is ridiculous." Isabella leaned back, arms crossed, clearly expecting him to fail. But Marcus didn't focus on her. He focused on the engine. Every wire, every bolt, every connection reminded him of the nights he used to study diagrams by candlelight, his daughter asleep beside him. He remembered the smell of oil in his father's old garage, the lessons whispered about patience and precision. Piece by piece, he began to work, tuning out the gears behind him. His movements were clumsy at first, rusty from years away from the craft, but slowly they grew steadier, sharper, fueled by something no one in that room could see, his love for his daughter. Sweat dripped down his brow as he adjusted wires, tested circuits, and tightened bolts. The silence in the room grew heavier with every passing minute. What began as laughter turned into murmurs, then into stunned silence. Executives leaned in, their smirks replaced by curiosity. Isabella's playful arrogance faltered as she realized this janitor wasn't stumbling. He was rebuilding. Marcus's mind wasn't just on the engine, it was on the little girl waiting for him at home. Her name was Liana, 7 years old, with bright eyes that carried hope even when life was hard. He thought of the nights she asked him why other kids had more, and he had to fight back tears to reassure her that their little world of two was enough. He thought of the promise he had made to her mother, whispered in a hospital room filled with sorrow, "I'll protect her. I'll give her everything I can." And then, with one final adjustment, the engine roared to life. The sound filled the conference room, sharp and alive, echoing against the glass walls like a declaration of triumph. Gasps erupted, followed by applause. The executives looked at each other in disbelief, shaking their heads at the impossible. Isabella's face, once smug with confidence, was frozen in shock. She had expected humiliation, not victory. Yet here he was, standing tall, the janitor who had done what their hired experts couldn't. For Marcus, it wasn't about the marriage dare or the applause. It was about proving that worth isn't measured by titles or uniforms. It was about showing his daughter, even if she would never see that moment, that her father wasn't just the man who mopped floors. He was a man who could rise when the world tried to keep him down. But the story didn't end there. Impressed by what they had witnessed, several executives approached Marcus after the meeting. They asked him about his background, his experience, his knowledge. For the first time in years, someone saw him for his skills, not just his janitor's cart. Isabella, humbled and silent, watched as her mockery turned into Marcus's opportunity. Days later, he was offered a position, not as a janitor, but as an apprentice mechanic within the company's automotive division. It wasn't just a promotion. It was the opening of a door that had long been slammed shut in his face. When Marcus came home that evening, Liana rushed into his arms, her small hands clinging to his neck as she asked about his day. He smiled through tears, telling her that things were about to change, that her dreams of new shoes, books, and maybe even piano lessons weren't so far away anymore. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dream again too. Weeks turned into months, and Marcus's hard work earned him respect. He wasn't just fixing engines, he was rebuilding his life. His colleagues admired him, not just for his talent but for his humility, his dedication, and the way he always spoke of his daughter with pride. Isabella, too, changed. She began to look at Marcus differently, not as the janitor she once mocked but as a man of resilience and strength. Though the talk of marriage had been a cruel joke, she couldn't deny the admiration she felt for the men who had stood tall when she tried to make him small. The moment became a story within the company, whispered with awe in hallways and boardrooms. The janitor who turned an insult into triumph became a symbol of grit and dignity. Marcus didn't just fix an engine that day, he fixed the way people saw him, and perhaps even the way some saw the world. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your loved ones, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue telling stories that uplift, inspire, and remind us all of the power of kindness and resilience. Before we close, I have a special request. Let us know in the comments what part of Marcus's journey moved you the most. Was it his courage to step forward? His love for his daughter? Or the way he proved everyone wrong when it mattered most? We'd love to hear your thoughts. In the end, Marcus never needed Isabella's marriage or her approval. What he gained was far greater, the chance to give his daughter the life she deserved, the pride of knowing he was capable, and the quiet but unshakable dignity of a man who refused to be defined by circumstance. His story reminds us all that sometimes, the greatest victories come not from wealth, power, or position, but from the heart of a single parent fighting against all odds to keep a promise of love alive. And so, on that bright afternoon when the engine roared to life, Marcus Reed didn't just repair a machine. He reignited hope, not only for himself and his daughter but for everyone who would one day hear his story.